Admiral Kazoth's antennae twitched as their ceremonial shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. The swirling clouds parted to reveal a sprawling cityscape below, and their inner eyelids flickered rapidly to adjust to the harsh sunlight reflecting off the gleaming structures. As Third Admiral of the Galactic Confederation's diplomatic fleet, they had overseen 17 first contact ceremonies, but something about this one felt different. Status report. Kazoth clicked to their crew, their translator automatically converting the sounds into standard Galactic. Lieutenant Vexna consulted their datapad. The human delegation awaits us at their Houston Space Center, Admiral. All ceremonial protocols are prepared according to their specifications. The lieutenant's exoskeleton shifted colors slightly, betraying their nervousness. Though I must note, the humans have made some unusual requests. Kazoth's head tilted. Elaborate. They've requested to broadcast the ceremony through something called social media. They want their entire species to witness it in real time. Vexna's color shifted again. It's unprecedented. Before Kazoth could respond, the shuttle's warning system blared. Red lights pulsed through the cabin as the propulsion system sputtered. Their pilot, Commander Zin, worked frantically at the controls. Minor malfunction in the atmospheric stabilizers, Zin reported, their 4 arms moving in perfect coordination across the control panel. Nothing dangerous, but we'll need to land for maintenance. The Space Center has a suitable dock. Kazoth suppressed their irritation. First contact ceremonies required perfect timing, and this delay would disrupt hours of careful planning. As the shuttle gracefully settled onto the landing pad, they could already see the human delegation's concerned faces through the viewport. Lieutenant, inform our hosts of the situation. Estimate repair time. 30 minutes, minimum, Commander Zin replied. Kazoth's antennae drooped slightly. Very well. We shall use this time productively. Perhaps a tour of their facility while we wait. The human delegation proved surprisingly accommodating to the change in schedule. Their leader, a tall female called Director Roberts, personally guided them through the Space Center's exhibits. Kazoth noted with interest how the humans had preserved their primitive space vessels, displaying them with evident pride. The tour group rounded a corner, and suddenly Kazoth's sensitive auditory organs were assaulted by a cacophony of electronic sounds. Beeps, explosions, and the excited voices of human younglings echoed from a large chamber ahead. My apologies, Director Roberts said quickly. That's our interactive education center. We can take another route. No, Kazoth interrupted, their curiosity piqued. I would like to observe. The chamber was filled with rows of devices that Kazoth initially mistook for training simulators. Young humans sat before glowing screens, their hands moving across control interfaces with remarkable speed and precision. The Admiral approached the nearest station, where a small human was expertly maneuvering a virtual spacecraft through an asteroid field while simultaneously managing weapon systems and power distribution. You train your younglings in combat tactics? Kazoth asked, trying to keep the concern from their voice. Director Roberts laughed. Train? No, this is just the arcade. These are games. Entertainment. Kazoth's translator must have malfunctioned. They were about to request clarification when the young human executed a perfect slingshot maneuver around a virtual gas giant, using the planet's gravity to accelerate their ship while launching a spread of missiles that intercepted 3 pursuing vessels. The Admiral's inner eyelids snapped open wide. That exact maneuver was part of the Confederation's advanced tactical training program. Director, Kazoth said slowly, their antennae rigid with sudden understanding. I believe we should extend our maintenance delay. I find myself fascinated by your educational entertainment center. Behind them, Lieutenant Vexna's exoskeleton had turned a pale shade of worried green. Emily Anderson tucked a strand of unruly brown hair behind her ear as she leaned forward in the simulator's padded seat. Her blue eyes reflected the holographic display's glow as she guided her virtual starship through a complex series of maneuvers. The remnants of a cherry slushie sat forgotten beside her, condensation dripping down the cup side. Level 15B, the game announced in its robotic voice. Multiple hostile contacts detected. Shields at 30%. Reactor stability compromised. Admiral Kazoth watched in growing amazement as the human child's fingers danced across the control interface. Instead of retreating to repair shields, the obvious tactical choice, she diverted power from life support to weapons, leaving just enough oxygen for 3 minutes of operation. Impossible, Lieutenant Vexna whispered in their native clicking language. She's calculating life support consumption against combat duration. Emily's ship spun in a tight spiral, using the rotation to spread her shield coverage efficiently while conserving power. 3 enemy vessels converged on her position, their weapons charged. The Admiral's antennae twitched as they recognized the attack pattern, a standard Confederation pursuit formation. But Emily had seen it too. She fired her maneuvering thrusters in short, precise bursts, timing them perfectly to disrupt the enemy ship's targeting algorithms. Her power reserves dropped to critical levels as she charged her main weapons. That's a threshold variance maneuver, Kazoth clicked softly. Our finest tacticians developed that technique just 2 cycles ago. Emily's ship suddenly cut all power, going dark against the starfield. The enemy vessels adjusted their formation, scanning for her position. In that moment of repositioning, she executed her trap. Emergency power surged to the engines. Her ship shot forward, skimming the edge of a nearby moon's gravity well. The slingshot effect hurled her directly through the enemy formation. Time on target firing solution, she muttered to herself, fingers flying across the weapon's control. Compensate for gravitational drift. All 3 enemy ships exploded simultaneously, caught in a perfectly calculated crossfire. Emily's vessel emerged from the debris field, life support power restored with 7 seconds to spare. High score. The simulator flashed triumphantly. New record. Emily Anderson. Yes. Emily pumped her fist in the air, then reached for her slushie. She frowned at finding it empty, then finally noticed the small crowd that had gathered around her station. Her eyes widened at the sight of the alien delegation. Oh, hello, she said, suddenly self-conscious. Sorry, was I being too loud? Kazoth stepped forward, their translator working to convey the complex mix of emotions in their voice. Young one, how long have you been training in space combat tactics? Emily laughed. Training. This is just Stellar Conquest VI. I've been playing since the last version, maybe 2 years. This one's better though. The physics engine is way more realistic. 2 years. Lieutenant Vexna's exoskeleton shifted through several shades of disbelief. And this is entertainment. Yeah. Emily brightened, always eager to talk about her favorite game. The developers really outdid themselves this time. They added proper gravitational mechanics and everything. Watch. She started a new scenario, quickly demonstrating how she could use the gravity of different celestial bodies to plot complex attack vectors. Kazoth's inner eyelids flickered rapidly as they recognized more and more advanced combat techniques being casually executed by a human child who had apparently learned them through play. And the best part, Emily continued, oblivious to the aliens' growing astonishment, is that they've added reactor management this time. You have to balance power distribution just right, or you'll lose weapons capability at critical moments. It's so much more strategic now. Director Roberts leaned close to Kazoth. Is everything all right, Admiral? You seem concerned. Kazoth's antennae quivered as they watched Emily start another round, her muscle memory executing maneuvers that would qualify her as a master tactician in the Confederation fleet. Director, they replied carefully. I believe we need to have a very serious discussion about human recreational activities. Admiral Kazoth paced the length of their temporary office in the Space Center, their clawed feet clicking against the polished floor. Lieutenant Vexna projected a holographic display of Emily's gaming session, analyzing it frame by frame. Commander Zen had long since abandoned any pretense of working on the shuttle repairs, their forearms crossed as they watched the replay for the third time. "Play it again," Kizov ordered. "Focus on the power distribution sequence." The hologram showed Emily's fingers moving across the controls, her casual movements belying the complexity of what she was accomplishing. Kizov's antennae twitched as they counted the microsecond timing of her adjustments. "It's identical," Commander Zinn whispered. "The power cycling pattern matches our Mark 7 battlecruiser specifications exactly." "How could she know?" "She doesn't know," Kizov replied, their inner eyelids narrowing. "That's what makes this so remarkable. She discovered it through trial and error, through play." The door chimed, and Director Roberts entered with two more humans in business attire. "Admiral, these are the developers of Stellar Conquest VI. They've come to answer your questions." The taller human stepped forward, extending his hand before remembering the Confederation's protocols about physical contact. "Marcus Williams, lead designer. Is there a problem with the game?" Kizov's translator clicked as they formulated their response. "Tell me, Designer Williams, how did you develop the power distribution mechanics in your simulation?" Marcus beamed with pride. "We wanted it to feel realistic. Our team spent months researching theoretical papers on fusion reactor dynamics. We even consulted with NASA about their current designs for theoretical papers." Lieutenant Vexna interrupted, their exoskeleton flushing a deep shade of shock. "You derived working quantum distribution theory from theoretical papers." The second developer shrugged. "Well, yeah, we had to make some educated guesses to make it fun. Players don't want to spend 10 minutes adjusting power levels just to fire a single shot." Commander Zinn's forearms all gestured in agitation. "Admiral, they've accidentally recreated our most advanced power management systems because the accurate version would be too boring for human children." Kizov moved to the holographic display, freezing it on Emily's slingshot maneuver. "And this tactical approach, where did this come from?" "Oh, that's all player developed," Marcus said. "The kids figured out you could use gravity wells to maintain weapon lock while conserving engine power. We never even thought of that during development. They're always finding new strategies." The Admiral's antennae went rigid. "How many humans play this game?" "Well, Stellar Conquest VI has sold about 20 million copies worldwide." Marcus consulted his tablet. "But that's just our franchise. There are dozens of space combat simulators on the market." Lieutenant Vexna's exoskeleton had turned almost white. 20 million. "And they all share techniques." Kizov pressed. "They compete." Marcus nodded enthusiastically. "We have global tournaments. You should see some of the strategies they come up with. Last month's championship match had this incredible moment where the winner used a pulsar's radiation burst to mask their torpedo spread. By the First Fleet, Commander Zinn breathed. "That's a stellar shadow maneuver. We classify that tactic as theoretical because no pilot could calculate the timing fast enough." Zoth turned to Director Roberts, their translator struggling to convey the gravity in their voice. "Your species has created the largest combat training program we have ever encountered, and you did it by accident. That child we watched earlier, by Confederation standards, she would qualify as a tactical genius." The room fell silent as the implication sank in. Marcus and his colleague exchanged worried glances. "Are we in trouble?" Marcus asked carefully. Zoth's antennae swayed as they considered the question. "No," they'd finally decided. "But I believe I now understand why the Confederation's predictive algorithms insisted we approach Earth with a diplomatic mission rather than our standard evaluation protocols." "What do you mean?" Director Roberts asked. The Admiral's inner eyelids flickered with what might have been amusement. "Because, Director, if we had come in any other way, your species would have instinctively known exactly how to respond. After all, you've been practicing for decades." The Confederation research vessel, Eternal Curiosity, hung in low Earth orbit, its sensors trained on the planet below. Inside the ship's primary analysis chamber, Admiral Kizov stood surrounded by holographic displays showing decades of human gaming history. Lieutenant Vexna coordinated with their cultural research team, their exoskeleton shifting through shades of amazement as each new piece of data arrived. "Display the evolutionary timeline," Kizov ordered. The holograms shifted, showing a progression of games starting from the late 20th century. Simple, pixelated spaceships gave way to increasingly complex simulations. The Admiral watched as humanity's entertainment paralleled their theoretical understanding of space combat. "Space Invaders, 1978. Vexna read from the display. Simple linear movement. Basic projectile physics. But look here." Their hand gestured to a neural scan. Even this primitive simulation taught spatial awareness and timing. Commander Zen manipulated another display with their 4 arms. Then asteroids introduced full rotational movement. Defender added strategic resource management. The Elite brought 3-dimensional navigation. Each game built upon the last, adding layers of complexity that mirrored actual space combat development. Kizov's antennae twitched as they studied footage from a 1990s gaming tournament. These competitions, they're treated like sporting events. Better, Vexna clicked excitedly. The humans record their gameplay, share techniques, analyze each other's strategies. They call it streaming and esports. They've created a self-improving tactical training system driven by entertainment and social interaction. The displays showed hundreds of gaming channels, each featuring humans narrating their gameplay, explaining their strategies, teaching others. Kizov watched as players demonstrated maneuvers that had taken Confederation tactical officers years to master. "Show me current participation numbers," the Admiral commanded. The statistics materialized before them. Commander Zen's arms all froze in mid-gesture. These figures can't be correct. This would mean 1/3 of their global population has experience with some form of space combat simulation. Vexna confirmed, their exoskeleton paling. And those are just the active players. If we include historical data. Kizov moved through the displays, studying the progression. Space combat games drove their computing technology forward. The demand for more realistic simulations pushed their processing capabilities. Their graphics technology evolved to display complex 3-dimensional battle spaces. "Admiral," a junior researcher called out, their voice trembling. "You need to see this analysis of their mobile gaming platforms." The hologram shifted to show countless humans engaged with portable devices. Kizov's inner eyelids flickered rapidly as they processed the implications. They carry simplified combat simulators with them, the Admiral breathed. Their children practice basic space warfare tactics while waiting for public transportation. Commander Zen pulled up another display. "Look at these educational institutions. Sports scholarships. They're actually selecting for tactical ability through their entertainment systems." "And their military?" Kizov asked. Vexna projected a new set of statistics. Their armed forces actively recruit from gaming communities. They found that simulation experience translates to faster learning curves in actual combat scenarios. The Admiral's antennae went rigid as the final pieces fell into place. Their entire civilization has been unconsciously preparing for space combat. Every game, every tournament, every casual player experimenting with new strategies. They've created a culture of constant tactical innovation without even realizing it. "What do we do with this information?" Commander Zen asked, their arms moving in patterns of concern. Kizov studied the central display, where Emily Anderson's gaming session still played on loop. The human child executed another perfect combat maneuver, took a sip of her slushie, and casually shared the technique with her friends. "We need to revise all our previous assessments of human military potential," the Admiral decided. Their games aren't just entertainment. They're the largest combat training program in the galaxy, driven by something far more powerful than any military directive. "What's that?" Vexna asked. "Fun," Kizov replied, their translator struggling with the concept. They've turned warfare simulation into something their species actively enjoys, and that makes them more dangerous than any traditionally trained military force we've ever encountered. The displays continue to cycle through countless humans playing, learning, and mastering the art of space combat, all while simply trying to have a good time. The Grand Chamber of the Confederation Council sat in stunned silence as Admiral K'Zoth's report concluded. The holographic display at the Chamber Center showed Emily Anderson's gaming session for the 100th time, her casual mastery of advanced combat techniques now carrying an entirely new weight of significance. High Chancellor Engstith's crystalline form pulsed with concerned colors. "You mean to tell us, Admiral, that this child learned quantum distribution theory through entertainment?" "Not just this child," K'Zoth's translator conveyed, their antennae rigid with urgency. "Millions of them, billions, if we count historical participants. Their entire species treats advanced space combat as a leisure activity." The council erupted in clicking, whistling, and electromagnetic pulses of alarm. Representatives from 30 different species all tried to speak at once. Chancellor Engstith's form flashed brilliant red, demanding order. "Show them the training comparison," Lieutenant Vexna suggested quietly. K'Zoth nodded, manipulating the holographic controls. The display split, showing a Confederation tactical officer in training alongside a human teenager playing Stellar Conquest VOI. "Observe the power management techniques," K'Zoth clicked. "Our officer spent 2 cycles mastering this sequence. The human learned it in approximately 6 hours of gameplay, primarily because they were trying to beat their friend's high score." A Methulian counselor's tentacles writhed in agitation. "But surely their simulations are simplified. Primitive approximations." Commander Zen stepped forward, their 4 arms gesturing at the display. "That's the most disturbing part. Their game developers, in an effort to create what they call realistic feel, have accidentally reproduced our most advanced systems. Sometimes they even improve upon them." The hologram shifted to show gaming tournament footage. Thousands of humans cheered as players executed complex tactical maneuvers, their enthusiasm sending ripples of discomfort through the council chamber. "They celebrated," K'Zoth continued. "They share techniques, analyze strategies, constantly push the boundaries of what's possible. And they do it all without realizing they're engaged in advanced military training." High Chancellor Engstith's crystalline structure dimmed thoughtfully. "What is your assessment of their actual combat potential?" K'Zoth's antennae dipped in a gesture of grave concern. "Their simulator experience translates to real combat scenarios with frightening efficiency. Our tactical AI estimates that the average human gamer has spent more time in simulated space combat than 90% of our active duty officers." The chamber erupted again. Azenthalon representatives' bioluminescent patterns flashed in panic. "How did we miss this during our preliminary species evaluation?" "Because we were looking for military installations," K'Zoth explained. "Training facilities, weapon stockpiles. We never thought to classify their entertainment centers as combat training grounds." The hologram showed an ordinary Earth arcade. Dozens of young humans sat at gaming stations, their hands flying over controls as they mastered maneuvers that had taken other species centuries to develop. "Every gaming center is a potential tactical training facility," Lieutenant Vexna added. "Every gaming console is a combat simulator." They gamified warfare so effectively that their children voluntarily spend thousands of hours practicing. High Chancellor Engstith pulsed deep blue, a sign of serious deliberation. "Your recommendations, Admiral." K'Zoth straightened to their full height. "We must immediately revise our diplomatic approach. The humans don't just have potential for space combat excellence. They've been actively developing it for generations. More importantly, they've made it part of their culture in a way we've never seen before." "Are you suggesting they pose a threat?" the Methulian counselor asked. "No," K'Zoth clicked firmly. "I'm suggesting they represent an opportunity. Their approach to training through entertainment is revolutionary. They've solved problems our finest tactical minds struggled with, simply because they were trying to make their games more enjoyable." The hologram returned to Emily Anderson, showing her teaching younger players how to execute a particularly complex maneuver. The casual way she shared advanced combat techniques sent another wave of murmurs through the council. The humans don't just play games, Kazoth concluded. They've created a self-perpetuating system of combat innovation, driven by something far more powerful than military discipline, pure enjoyment. And that, honored council members, makes them the most formidable potential allies we've ever encountered. The Houston Space Center's gaming hall had been transformed overnight. Where arcade cabinets once stood, sleek Confederation training simulators now hummed with quiet power. Emily Anderson sat at one of the stations, her usual slushie replaced with a water bottle bearing the Confederation insignia. Around her, 20 other young gamers waited nervously. Admiral Kazoth stood on an observation platform above, accompanied by Director Roberts and a delegation of Confederation tactical officers. Lieutenant Vexna's exoskeleton shifted through anxious color patterns as they initialized the test protocols. Remember, Kazoth addressed the human participants, this is a new space combat simulation we're developing. We value your feedback on its playability. Emily cracked her knuckles, studying the alien control interface with keen interest. The layout's different from Stellar Conquest, but I think I see how it works. Are we doing team matches or free-for-all? Commander Zin's 4 arms moved in practiced synchronization as they brought up the scenario parameters. You'll be facing off against our tactical training eye. It's been programmed with strategies developed by our finest officers. What the humans didn't know was that they were actually competing against live Confederation pilots, carefully selected from the fleet's elite training division. The AI story was cover for what amounted to a direct combat simulation between species. Beginning Test Scenario 1. The system announced in multiple languages. Emily's fingers danced across the controls, quickly adapting to the alien interface. Her first few maneuvers were cautious, testing the simulation's physics engine and response patterns. 3 other young gamers launched aggressive attacks immediately, their ships quickly overwhelmed by the sophisticated Confederation tactics. Interesting. Kazoth clicked softly. She's learning the system's capabilities before engaging. Emily's ship performed a series of small, precise movements. The Confederation officers watched in growing amazement as she combined elements from different human games, the power cycling from Stellar Conquest, the targeting algorithms from Nova Command, the shield harmonics from Galactic Rain. That's impossible, one of the Confederation pilots transmitted. She's creating hybrid techniques on the fly. Director Roberts leaned forward, watching Emily's screen. Is something wrong? On the contrary, Kazoth's translator hummed. She's innovating. These aren't pre-programmed strategies she's using. She's inventing new ones by combining elements from her gaming experience. Emily's ship suddenly executed a maneuver that caused several alarm systems to trigger. She had intentionally overloaded her reactor, using the power surge to briefly supercharge her shields, while simultaneously creating an electromagnetic pulse that disrupted enemy targeting systems. Timeout. Commander Zin called, their arms working frantically. That sequence shouldn't even be possible. The safety protocols. She found a way around them. Vexna clicked in disbelief. She discovered a loophole in our programming that our own pilots never considered. The other human gamers were watching Emily's screen now, learning from her example. Within minutes, they began incorporating elements of her strategy into their own gameplay. The Confederation pilots found themselves facing an evolving array of hybrid tactics they had never encountered. This is beyond our expectations, Kazoth transmitted to the High Council observers. They're not just learning our systems, they're improving them through pure intuition and creativity. Emily ship dove into a dense asteroid field, using techniques that seemed to draw from at least 4 different gaming franchises. The Confederation pilot pursuing her found themselves trapped in a carefully planned ambush that shouldn't have been possible given the system's limitations. Game over, the simulator announced. New efficiency rating achieved. Emily stretched, reaching for her water bottle. That was fun. The physics engine is amazing. But you might want to add some variety to the AI's attack patterns. They started getting predictable towards the end. The Confederation pilots, their pride somewhat bruised, stared at their tactical displays in stunned silence. K'Zoth's antennae quivered with barely contained excitement. "Director Roberts," they clicked softly, "I believe we need to discuss an immediate partnership between your gaming industry and our tactical training division. Your species has just revolutionized our entire approach to space combat simulation, and you did it while trying to have fun." The United Nations Security Council chamber buzzed with tension as Admiral K'Zoth addressed the assembled human leaders. Behind them, a holographic display showed footage from the Houston tests, with Emily Anderson's performance highlighted in tactical overlay. "Your gaming industry," K'Zoth's translator conveyed, "has accidentally created the most sophisticated combat training program in known space." The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Chinese representative leaned forward. "Are you suggesting our video games are actually military simulators?" "Not exactly," Lieutenant Vexna clicked, their exoskeleton shifting to a scholarly blue. "Your developers, in their quest for entertainment, have reproduced advanced combat principles with remarkable accuracy. More importantly, you've made learning these principles fun." The hologram shifted to show comparison footage. Confederation tactical officers alongside human gamers, both executing similar maneuvers. Commander Zin manipulated the display with their 4 arms, highlighting key similarities. "This can't be right." Marcus Williams, the Stellar Conquest developer, stood from his observer seat. "We just made educated guesses about how space combat might work. We never had access to real data." K'Zoth's antennae twitched with what might have been amusement. "Your educated guesses sometimes surpassed our actual systems. Your players have developed techniques our tactical AI considered theoretically impossible." The Russian representative's eyes narrowed. "And you're telling us this why? Surely revealing military capabilities to a potentially rival species is unwise." "Because," K'Zoth clicked, "we believe this represents an unprecedented opportunity for both our civilizations. Your gaming industry has solved problems that have plagued our tactical training for generations." The hologram showed Emily teaching younger players, sharing techniques that had taken Confederation officers years to master. The casual efficiency of knowledge transfer sent another wave of murmurs through the chamber. Marcus suddenly laughed, drawing startled looks. "So that's why the physics engine kept giving us trouble. We were accidentally programming actual space combat dynamics." The Japanese representative raised her hand. "What exactly are you proposing, Admiral?" K'Zoth gestured, and the hologram changed to show a new design, a hybrid of human gaming stations and Confederation training systems. "A partnership. Your game developers working with our tactical experts. We provide real space combat data. You transform it into something people want to play." "More than that," Commander Zin added, their arms moving in excitement. "We want to implement your competitive gaming structure, your esports model. The tournament system, the streaming platforms, the social aspects that drive innovation." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Then, to everyone's surprise, Emily Anderson stood up from her observer seat. "So when I beat your AI yesterday, those weren't AI opponents," Vexna admitted, their exoskeleton flushing slightly. "You were competing against our elite tactical pilots." Instead of the outrage K'Zoth had feared, Emily's face lit up with excitement. "Really? That's awesome. Their attack patterns were super intricate. Can we learn those? And that targeting system was incredible, even if it did have that weird lag in the theta axis that we found a way around." The UN Secretary-General held up a hand, fighting back a smile. "Let me understand this correctly. Our children have been accidentally training in advanced space combat principles because it's entertaining." "Precisely," K'Zoth clicked. "And they've been improving upon those principles because they want to win games and impress their friends. It's a level of innovation drive we've never seen before." Marcus was already scribbling notes on his tablet. "The real physics are actually better than what we guessed. We can implement proper quantum mechanics in the next patch. Maybe add those shield harmonics patterns we saw in the test." The Secretary General looked around the chamber, seeing more excitement than concern on most faces. "I believe, Admiral, we would be very interested in discussing this partnership further. Though I suspect our gaming industry may be more enthusiastic about the technical details than our military." Zoth's antennae swayed in agreement. "That, honored leaders, is exactly why it works. You've turned the most complex aspects of space combat into something people choose to master. And in doing so, you've changed everything we thought we knew about tactical training." 6 months after the revelation, the Confederation Earth Joint Training Facility buzzed with activity. The massive space station, positioned in synchronous orbit above Houston, represented the first true merger of human gaming culture with alien military technology. Emily Anderson, now wearing the silver-trimmed uniform of a tactical training instructor, stood before a class of mixed species. Her students included 3 crystalline X-Tith younglings, a quartet of 4-armed Zen cadets, and a dozen human gamers selected from top tournaments worldwide. "The key to the quantum slingshot maneuver," she explained, manipulating the holographic display, "is understanding how shield harmonics interact with gravitational distortion. The game designers originally got this half right by accident. They were just trying to make explosions look cool." Admiral Kizoth watched from the observation deck, their antennae swaying with satisfaction as Emily's students perfectly executed the complex maneuver. Lieutenant Vexna's exoskeleton glowed with scholarly interest as they recorded the session. "Watch what happens when we apply the power distribution pattern from Stellar Conquest," Emily continued, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Now combine it with the targeting solution from Nova Command." The simulation lit up as her ship performed a maneuver that would have been considered impossible just months ago. The alien students clicked and hummed in appreciation, while the human gamers were already discussing potential modifications to the technique. "Remarkable," Commander Zinn observed, their 4 arms working multiple data panels. "They don't just learn the maneuvers, they immediately start looking for ways to improve them." Kizoth nodded. "The latest metrics from the Confederation fleet show a 300% improvement in tactical response training since implementing the human gaming protocols." On the main deck below, Marcus Williams from Stellar Conquest worked with a team of alien engineers, integrating real combat data into the next generation of space simulation games. The line between entertainment and military training had blurred in the most productive way possible. The tournament registration numbers just hit 1 billion. Vexna reported, their exoskeleton flickering with excitement. Players from 57 species across the Confederation. The human's competitive gaming model has revolutionized our entire approach to tactical training. Emily's class had moved on to practical exercises. The Admiral watched as a young X-Tith executed a perfect hybrid maneuver, combining techniques from 3 different gaming franchises. The crystalline alien surface pulsed with joy as their human classmates cheered. "Look at their energy patterns," Commander Zen marveled. "They're experiencing genuine pleasure while mastering complex combat techniques." The human concept of fun has transformed our most challenging training protocols into something species actively seek out. The main screen displayed rankings from the latest Interstellar Gaming Championship. Human players still dominated the top spots, but alien gamers were rapidly climbing the leaderboards, bringing their own unique perspectives and innovations to the field. "We've created something entirely new," Kizoth clicked softly. "Not just a training program or a game, but a cultural bridge built on the joy of shared challenge and discovery." Emily's voice carried up from the training floor. "Remember, there's no single right way to approach these scenarios. That's what makes it fun. Finding your own style, your own solutions. The physics are real, but how you use them, that's where it gets interesting." The Admiral's antennae twitched as they remembered their first glimpse of Emily in that Houston arcade, casually mastering techniques that had baffled Confederation experts for generations. Now, watching her teach those same skills to a new generation of mixed-species pilots, Kizoth understood the true significance of what they'd discovered. "Your assessment of the program's future?" Commander Zinn asked. Zoth gestured at the scene below, where humans and aliens worked together, learning and laughing as they pushed the boundaries of what was possible. We thought we were discovering a hidden military advantage. Instead, we found something far more valuable, a way to turn the most complex challenges of space combat into a source of joy and connection across species. Emily's voice rose again, filled with enthusiasm. All right, who wants to try breaking this simulator in new and interesting ways? The chamber filled with eager responses in a dozen different languages, united by a very human concept that had proven more powerful than any weapon or training protocol: the simple, universal desire to play.